Today's video is sponsored by World Anvil. RPG enthusiasts, writers, map makers, and world builders need to check out World Anvil. Your amazing ideas need a place to live, and it's never been easier than now. As a dungeon master, you can manage an entire campaign, create maps, create articles with creatures that include stat blocks, roll tables, and information about the horrors your players will be facing. Keep track of all of your party members with the RPG Campaign Manager. Track experience, loot, background information, and write down last session's highlights. Your players can also write journals, which I highly recommend. With over 20 supported systems, you can easily and seamlessly create your next world for your next campaign. And now what you're here for.
What if the only girl on your table is actually a problem player? This happened in my college's D&D club back in 2013 to 2014. Our college's D&D club is entirely male, except for one single girl. I know what you're thinking. Oh God, what creepy shit befell this poor girl. Don't worry, nobody in the club was weird towards her. It isn't that kind of story. In fact, she's the problem player. This girl had huge, I'm not like the other girls energy. For example, her characters were always rebellious noble girls who didn't want to wear dresses and marry. Her usual backstory formula for her characters was abusive father plus unwanted betrothal plus asshole fiance plus running away plus learning to fight all on her own on the streets. She would occasionally mention that she hates dresses and never wants to have kids. She only ever wore jeans and t-shirts of heavy metal bands. She had her hair dyed blue, had 3 nose piercings and 4 ear piercings on each ear. Looking back on it now, she acted like she invented alternative punk fashion. The red flags were there, but we never picked them up, because she didn't have another girl in the club to compete with. We shall refer to her from here on out as Aria. I was playing a game with Aria and 3 other people for a party of 5. We were running a fun little homebrew where our party was a group of royals from various countries trying to unite all the nations to fight the BBEG, who awoke from his ancient slumber. The game was heavily inspired by Game of Thrones, because everyone in the club was obsessed with the series, and this was before the disaster that was Season 8. Arya was playing the youngest princess of the Woodland Kingdom, who made a bet with her father that if she defeated the BBEG, she wouldn't have to marry. She played a rogue, because it was the most unladylike class for her to play in the narrative of the story. I was playing the third prince of the Northern Kingdom, who was a star druid. The other guy at the table was the paladin crown heir of the Dragon Kingdom. 2 other players had to drop out of the game in Session 7, because their coursework was getting too crazy for them to have a social life. The DM decided to bring in another player, who he recently met in one of his classes to fill the vacancy. In our 8th session, we were introduced to a princess of the Western Kingdom. She was played by a girl. This was a problem for Arya. We will call this new player Sansa. Sansa was just as nerdy as everyone in the club, and had an obsession with Game of Thrones just like we did. Because of this, she instantly got along with all of us, especially when she showed up in blue sundress with her hair styled like Daenerys Targaryen. She was absolutely obsessed with the fashion of the series, and often modeled her looks after Daenerys Targaryen, Cersei Lannister, Sansa Stark, or Marjorie Tyrell. Compared to Arya, Sansa was traditionally feminine. While everyone was talking amicably with Sansa, Arya was acting a little bit, distant. Every time Sansa tried to strike up a conversation with Arya, Arya's responses were 1 or 2 words at best. This was rather weird and noticeable, because Arya was the type to talk your head off for hours. Sometimes we joked around and told her to remember to breathe as she was talking. But when Arya and Sansa talked to each other, it went like this. Sansa, did you like the new episode? Arya, yeah. Sansa, wasn't it great when Joffrey started choking? I'm gonna save it as my ringtone. Arya, mm-hmm. Sansa, and did you see the thorns in Queen Marjorie's wedding dress? I just love the attention to detail they put in this show. Arya, yup. Sansa seemed to be so excited to meet another girl who was into D&D and Game of Thrones just like her, but Arya always seemed like she wanted nothing to do with her. In-game, Sansa volunteered to build a life domain cleric to cover the original cleric's departure. She wore a homebrewed dress of billowing with plated steel woven throughout it, so that she can wear dresses, but have it flow away from her feet and legs in combat, so that it wouldn't impede in her movement. Basically, she wanted to stay heavily armored, while wearing a poofy flowing dress. It was approved instantly by the DM. Arya, out of character, questioned the DM on this homebrew, stating that it bent the rules of D&D a little too much, which was a really crazy take to have at this game's table, because we all had really insane homebrew. My Star Druid had a homebrewed spell called Star Strike, which was literally Eldritch Blast, but with radiant damage. I had an owlbear pet that functioned like a ranger's companion, despite me not multiclassing into ranger. Also, it was made out of stardust, and I could fuse with it to become a were owlbear for 10 minutes, with stats equivalent to a challenge rating 4 beast, and AC equivalent to heavy plate. The warlock that used to be in our party had a pact with Primus, who gave him metamagic and sorcery points. He had a Modron as his warlock pet, and was summoning duodrons, and tridrons like a circle of shepherd druid. Arya herself had a cape that turned into bat wings as a bonus action, and gave her a flight speed of 25 feet. She also had an invisible dagger that allowed her to do surprise attacks, without hiding, so long as the blade was clean, and we ran old school sneak attack crit rules, so her sneak attack damage would be doubled on a crit, making her capable of one-hit killing non-boss enemies every now and then. Our own Owl Paladin had a baby metallic red dragon that he could ride, because Targaryen things. Suffice to say, everyone in the party had horrendously busted homebrews. With all this in the game, the fact that Arya drew the line at a billowing armored dress was rather baffling. DM didn't do anything because Sansa's homebrew dress was the most harmless homebrew in the entire game. This would occur multiple times. Every time Sansa asked for a homebrew that helped her catch up to our power level, Arya would have concerns about how it was messing up the rules, even though everyone at the table was constantly desecrating rules, as written by simply existing. We were all level 8, but our homebrews probably made us functionally a level 12 or higher. We also definitely abused the rule of cool, outright throwing the book away to do awesome shit. One time, Arya threw her Batwing cape to Paladin, who caught it and wore it mid-combat, so he can fly alongside his dragon, and have an epic final kill on a boss monster. The whole process broke item interaction and attunement rules, but the DM allowed it, because the end result would be super epic. But whenever a rule of cool moment happened to Sansa, Arya suddenly became a rules lawyer. There was a moment where Paladin was going to allow Sansa to ride his dragon, so that the two of them could do some awesome combo attacks, but Arya argued a full 20 minutes on how Paladin's dragon wouldn't allow Sansa to ride it, even though Paladin and DM said that she could for rule of cool. In fact, the rule that she was arguing over was a homebrew rule that sure as hell didn't exist in RAW. It was little things like this that happened constantly over the campaign. In combat, whenever Sansa would hang back to support us, Arya would make a backhanded comment about her being the best cheerleader ever, insinuating that she wasn't doing anything. Even then, Arya would often have an issue if Sansa attacked, saying that she was wasting a turn. But it's not like Sansa attacks stupidly. She would set Bless up, make sure everyone wasn't bloodied, mostly used cantrips, and always made sure she had spell slots for multiple revivifies. One time, Sansa was the only PC left standing after a mind flare downed the rest of us with a surprise fireball that we all failed the dex save on. She at first used massed healing word to pick us up, but we got downed again by another fireball. Sansa saw that she couldn't pick us back up with the mind flare still around. Since the mind flare was bloodied, she fired a higher level guiding bolt and killed it to end the encounter. Then she picked us back up with another mass healing word. Now at this point, this was Sansa's greatest combat feat, and we all cheered for her since she saved our asses. Everyone except for Arya. Arya, instead, pointed out who she thought dealt the most damage, and truly contributed to the fight, souring Sansa's moment and everyone else's mood. After that moment, Sansa started to change. When she first joined, she was rather energetic and excitable, but after the Mind Flayer fight, she started to become more quiet, role-played less, and didn't take as many notes as before. In the beginning, we chose to ignore Arya's behavior, but when it finally clicked to us that Arya was being a bully, and Sansa was too meek to defend herself, we chose to do something about it. I do regret not acting sooner. The table started to go into a vicious cycle, where Arya would be passive-aggressive towards Sansa. Someone would defend Sansa. Arya would get upset and get a little bit meaner the next time. It all crumbled down when Arya killed Sansa's pet lion cub that she was raising with the bullshit reason that it was going to grow up to become deadly and uncontrollable. She argued that she was preventing a future problem. Thankfully, the DM reversed this act after seeing how much it upset Sansa and how needlessly cruel the action was. The DM threatened to kick Arya out if she did something like that again. Arya responded with malicious slander. Arya started making up rumors about Sansa and other club members' DMs. Now the rest of this story is information. I got secondhand from other club members that weren't part of my table. I never saw the messages that Arya put out, but she basically said that Sansa was sleeping with all of us for better rewards. Nobody believed her because Sansa was way too much of a dork. I say that with love, to even instigate flirting. I think Arya expected everyone in the club to rally up, gather pitchforks, light torches, and kick out the accused harlot to the streets based purely on hearsay. That didn't happen. Instead, the club members told the club president, and the club president took Arya aside and asked her, "Yo, what the fuck is your deal? Did Sansa do something to you? Why do you hate her so much?" Apparently, Arya answered him with a slut-shaming tirade against Sansa, saying that she was dressing slutty to get the guy's attention, flirting with everyone, pretending to like D&D and being a fake fan of Game of Thrones. It bothered Arya that us guys couldn't see how fake Sansa was, and she was sick of it. This was not true. Sansa's dresses were literally down to her ankle, and she wore a camis to hide her cleavage that she was constantly pulling up. She gave the vibe that she was a bit insecure with herself. She wasn't capable of flirting with anyone because she only ever talked about medieval fantasy dresses or Game of Thrones. She didn't know any other topic of conversation. Anyone who played a game with her can actually tell that she liked D&D, and it was clear that she had played it a shit ton because of her game knowledge. She knew my druid spells better than me. She not only liked Game of Thrones, but she read all the books in A Song of Ice and Fire, as well as the supplementary lore books by George R.R. Martin, like the Dunk and Egg series and Fire and Blood. For some reason, Arya saw Sansa as some kind of stereotypical preppy blonde girl from some bad Disney Channel movie, and not for the massive dweeb that she actually was. Word got around to Sansa, and she expressed that she was going to quit the club because she didn't want to be the center of any drama. The club president told her that she didn't do anything wrong, and that she didn't have to leave. Club president told Arya to cut this shit out because it was bullying and nobody in this club of basement-dwelling geeks were big fans of it. Arya rage quit when she realized everyone was taking Sansa's side, and another club member took her spot at our table. This whole mess happened years ago, but years later, things got better. I happen to have gotten back in touch with Arya in 2019, after I went on a massive public tirade over Game of Thrones Season 8 on my social media. My post triggered a reunion of the old D&D club members, as they all flocked to my page to bitch about the last season. We created a chat room to further air out our grievances with Game of Thrones ending. During this reunion, Arya reunited with Sansa for the first time in years. Get this, Arya actually apologized to her. Arya said that she deeply regrets what she did, and cringes heavily over her "I'm not like the other girls" phase. She says that whenever she remembers her antics from that point in her life, she convulses from utter shame. She says that she sometimes lays awake at night for hours, wishing she had more social awareness during that time. She said that she feels really bad that she tried to bully another woman out of an already male-dominated hobby, and feels awful about pitting two women against each other. Sansa forgave her. She shared her own cringy feelings over how she used to walk around in high fantasy clothing all the time, and the both of them had a good laugh. As they chatted, they found out that they both changed careers a year out of college, went back to school and became nurses. They even practice in the same field of medicine, under the same big medical company, just in different hospitals. To nobody's surprise, they had a lot in common. Shame they missed out on a potentially close friendship earlier. I don't think they hang out in real life, but at least they're internet friends now. I see them on my feed every now and then complaining about crappy doctors and sharing funny work stories.
One quick word about our sponsor, World Anvil. One of the joys of world building is writing. World Anvil makes it so much easier and cheaper than other options with their manuscripts and novel writing software. Enjoy a simple, clean writing interface that won't distract you from getting those words onto the page. Track your daily progress and keep yourself on pace to hitting that word goal. One amazing feature is that you can search your world in articles and update them while you write your manuscript. And seriously, so much more. Click the link in the description below and build your world and share what you make with us.
At least there's a happy ending. It's hard to recognize when you're the problem sometimes. It's a shame they didn't recognize it earlier. Share your cringy past mistakes with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.